All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating paradox. You see, there's this deeply ingrained societal bias where the exact traits that get labeled as, strange or difficult or just too much in women, well, they're actually scientifically backed markers of profound intelligence. So, if you've ever felt totally out of step with how the world expects a smart, put-together woman to behave, trust me, you are in exactly the right place.
Instead of giving you a standard, boring agenda, I actually just want to ask you a quick question. Have you ever been judged for being messy, staying up way too late, or, muttering to yourself in an empty room? Because get ready, we're about to completely reframe everything you thought was just a malfunction or a flaw in your personality. The disconnect here is actually wild. Society basically expects a brilliant woman to just have it all smoothly figured out, right? Organized, punctual, perfectly put together. But the psychological reality, processing massive amounts of data, noticing more details, feeling things deeply, well, that leaves entirely different, often super chaotic-looking fingerprints. It's not that you're trying to be difficult, it's literally just that you can't help but process the world at a much higher capacity. Act 1. The private signatures. Let's explore what actually happens behind closed doors when a super fast-moving mind is left entirely to its own devices. Think about these 3 habits. Talking to yourself out loud, having a night mind where you stay up super late, and keeping a messy, cluttered workspace. These are things so often wrapped in private shame, but as we look closer, you're going to see they're actually profound tools your brain uses to manage an incredibly complex internal world. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky's concept of inner speech is just fascinating. When your mind is juggling dozens of variables and counterarguments all at once, keeping it all locked inside creates absolute chaos. Vygotsky actually proved that talking out loud in an empty room isn't some fragmented behavior. It's the active, deliberate organization of immense cognitive complexity. Seriously, you aren't talking to yourself because you're lonely. You're doing it because your mind is literally too active to keep silent. So check this out. Society tells us that staying up until 2 a.m. means you're lazy or lack discipline, right? But science says the exact opposite. Studies on circadian rhythms repeatedly show that higher cognitive ability naturally gravitates toward later sleep schedules. Think about it. During the day, your attention is pulled in 100 different directions by endless expectations. At night, in that pure, quiet isolation between midnight and 4 a.m., your brain finally gets the space it needs to actually think and just breathe. And hey, if you've ever felt embarrassed by a messy desk, a famous University of Minnesota study is your ultimate defense. It turns out that physical clutter is often just a byproduct of a mind that is prioritizing deep, innovative problem-solving over, surface organization. The folks in messy environments actually generated way more creative ideas. So that scattered room, it isn't a moral failure. It simply means your mind is busy prioritizing its complex internal architecture over alphabetizing your bookshelf. Moving on to Act 2, the social disconnect. Let's look at how this highly active mind interacts with the outside world, and why highly intelligent women are so often falsely labeled as cold or difficult. Craving deep solitude? Constantly forgetting everyday things? Questioning absolutely everything, like never just accepting because I said so? And having a sense of humor that tends to go right over people's heads? These 4 habits often result in being deeply misunderstood by your peers. But, as we'll see, they're actually direct symptoms of a brain smartly managing its limited energy and running on a completely different frequency. I absolutely love this distinction. Loneliness is the ache of wanting connection. Solitude is the deliberate choice to be alone, because your own company is genuinely rich enough. You aren't withdrawing because you're intimidating or cold. You're doing it because surface-level connections completely drain you. You choose solitude because your own mind is simply the most interesting place you know. Psychologist Hans Eysenck's arousal theory of introversion anchors that feeling perfectly. Basically, if you have high baseline cortical arousal, your brain is already running at full capacity internally. That means the small talk that completely energizes other people, to you it just feels like overwhelming, deafening static. You literally require less external stimulation. It's not coldness, it's capacity management. And what about forgetting your keys or having no idea why you just walked into a room? Well, cognitive load theory explains this beautifully. The mind only has so much bandwidth. So, when you lose your glasses while they are literally sitting on top of your head, it isn't memory loss, it's memory triage. Your brain is actively dumping trivial information to protect its resources for complex processing. This also perfectly explains why your jokes sometimes just get these blank stares. Dark humor, sarcasm, and layered irony strongly correlate with high cognitive function. Your brain is super comfortable in gray areas. It makes connections and processes contradictory meanings vastly faster than other people can translate them, which is exactly why your punchlines might sometimes fly right over their heads.
Act 3. The Twin Burdens and the Escape. Let's drop the romanticized view of genius for a second and acknowledge the heavy, sometimes painful toll that a fast-moving mind can take on you. Overthinking everything. Procrastination driven by perfectionism and the daydreamer's mind, like zoning out mid-conversation. These three habits represent the true burdens of the intelligent mind, and for women, this carries extra weight because society hyperjudges a woman's delivery. You aren't just overthinking a work project, you're agonizing over whether your tone sounded too arrogant or too soft in an email you sent 3 days ago.
Daniel Kahneman's dual process theory completely explains this. It shows why you replay a simple interaction in your head over and over. Highly analytical minds actually default to slow thinking, a deliberate, exhaustive, and systematic cognitive process. Sure, it catches errors that others miss, but man, it is deeply exhausting. Your brain basically gets trapped in this systematic loop, analyzing every single angle of a past event.
So the crucial point here is how we look at procrastination. The label says it's laziness and apathy. The reality? You aren't delaying out of laziness at all. You're delaying because you have a crushing standard of excellence. Your mind clearly sees the perfect, ideal version of a task, and the gap between what you can currently produce and that envisioned perfection is so wide, you become temporarily paralyzed by it.
And then there's the daydreamer's mind. When you zone out mid-conversation across the dinner table, you aren't being rude. Your brain's default mode network just activated. This system fires up when you aren't focused externally, generating ideas and simulating futures at lightning speed. Your brain just found an internal simulation or a complex problem to solve that was drastically more compelling than the present moment, and it simply couldn't resist. The ultimate reframe, a different order. Now that we've mapped these out, let's bring it all together for a final, empowering reframe of your incredible mind. Look, the world is always going to label what it doesn't understand. They'll call you flaky, cold, scattered, difficult, or too much. But those labels aren't the truth. Psychologically speaking, these habits aren't malfunctions at all. They are the perfectly natural byproducts of a mind processing the world in extremely high resolution, managing its capacity deliberately, and seeking deep connection. That's not a disorder, that's a different order entirely. I really want you to mentally bookmark this idea. Seriously. Remember this quote, the very next time someone tells you that you're too much and not enough in the exact same breath. Your rarity was never your weakness. It was always the quietest kind of strength. Think about all the energy you've spent your whole life trying to fix these perfectly natural habits. Imagine if that energy was redirected into simply letting your mind do exactly what it was brilliantly built to do. I'll leave you with this final thought for our explainer today. If your rarity was never actually a weakness, what could you achieve by embracing your different order? Stop fighting your own brilliance. Stop apologizing for the way you process the world. What will happen when you finally lean into it? Think about that for a while. Challenge yourself to embrace that beautiful, chaotic, high-definition mind of yours this week.